way or alternative way to develop your project and also access funding. So first, quickly about our company. We're based in Berlin and Düsseldorf in Germany. And we've been existing now for 6 years. And we are developing different programs to help the European ecosystem of indie gamers. So we have 3 main programs. The first one is we are developing an acceleration program that we are giving to different indie studios in Europe. Every year we have about 20 studios from different parts of Europe that are taking part of this acceleration program. It's an international program focusing on the business part. So we are looking at financing, publishing, communication, monetization, just the business part. Second program that I will go into more details is a European co-production market, where we have created a platform to get different indie studios to meet and to develop collaboration. And the third project that you see here is basically a mix of both. It's a little bit of mentoring and professionalization and a co-production market, but between Africa and Europe. So this year, for example, we have 10 studios from Africa that we have helped from different countries of Africa that we have helped to mentor, to give some support in terms of business development as well. And then they have met different European developers to develop co-production. And we've got at the moment 6 co-productions that are taking place between Africa and Europe. So obviously, if you are interested in some of the project, just send us an email or follow us on social network, so you can see a little bit what we are doing. We are redeveloping a big community of indie developers in Europe. So I'm here to talk about co-production and trying to explain to you in a simple way, what do we mean with co-production? I mean, I guess you have heard of this word, this name for film and animation. I mean, it's been used in the sector of film and animation for many years. And in gaming, to be honest, it's been used by big companies. I mean, for example, if you talk to Ubisoft, they are mostly working co-production within their studios inside the group. But in terms of indie studios, it's not been so much developed. People are collaborating together, but in terms of co-developing project, it's not so developed. In a way, it's very simple. I mean, you are a studio from a country A, and you develop your own project. You have, of course, the skills for that. You have the idea. You own the IP, and maybe you access to some funding. And the idea is to say, instead of doing everything alone and to develop the whole project alone and taking all the risk, I try to find another studio from another country who will be a minority co-producer, so will be co-developing the project, but in a smaller scale, and then share with me the IP and the revenue of the project. And the idea is to do a better quality project, to increase the size of the budget, and most of the time to help to get a better negotiating position when you talk to financier or a publisher. Because obviously, if you're alone, a small studio, you're developing something with a quite small budget, it's going to be quite difficult to get a good publishing deal or a good financing deal. If you are 2 of you and you are developing something bigger, you have more chance to have something more interesting. So that's basically the concept. And why is it interesting today? It's interesting today because, as you know, there are more and more games, maybe too many games that are produced, and the visibility is very difficult to get. And at the same time, you need to get more and more budget. And today, there is a trend in Europe, in some countries, to increase a lot the public funding to help local, national, and European indie studios to develop their project. So, of course, I'm talking about 2 big countries in France and Germany. I don't know if some of you have some idea of the public funding there, but we're talking about 60 to 70 million that is dedicated only to game and to indie games in France and in Germany, so 140 over 2 countries together. But there are other countries now developing that. I mean, especially now we have different tax credits that are developed in Europe. So Italy just created a tax credit, UK, of course, France, Belgium, it will start as well very soon now. Spain is looking into it. So there are more and more interest and possibilities to get funding from these countries. So that's why suddenly it's quite interesting to work like that, because obviously, I mean, our target group is really indie studios who are developing projects around, let's say, between 200 and 500,000 euro. And through the co-production, they can really double their budget and come up to a million or something like that, which makes it completely different in terms of market access. So if I give just a few examples of what has been doing, I mean, we started very much between France and Germany. We did that for 3 years. Now we are very international, I will tell you. But if you take some example that we did in the past, you see you had a company majority co-producer in France, developed the whole project. The total budget with the co-production from Germany was at the end 650,000 euro. The German was very small. It was about 15% of the funding coming from Germany, so it can be very small. But at the same time, there were a lot of animation created and a lot of marketing was done by the German part. So that's really an example of something that, you know, put together a lot of funders and at the end managed to get something quite big in terms of funding. If you take another example from last year that we presented this year because they started during the year of 22, co-production between France and Germany again. It started in France and the idea was to see how we can access and split the work between the two studios. So that's a very important point, is if you want to go for a co-production, you need to identify very quickly who's going to do what. So in that case, for example, the Germans did the game development, game balancing, art and universe, the QA, the testing, and in the French part, they did the design, the technology, the marketing, and the testing as well. So to understand who's going to do what and where you're going to get some funding, you need to clarify that very quickly, the repartition. So that's the same example in terms of funding. So you see the total was about 500,000. And as you see, the BMVI, the German part, is 26%, for example, in that case. So 74% came from France. So quite a lot again from France. Another case that we also developed last year is a VR escape game, sorry. And so it's a project that has been developed. Obviously, it's been stopped as well because of COVID in terms of the distribution. So it's finished, but now it's waiting for distribution. Two companies between France and Germany. In Germany, it's a company that was doing consulting and developing focus on this co-production for their own project. And in France, it's a company that is in Angoulême, in the south of France, and really working on executive production for video game. And what is also interesting is about the repartition. So, you know, the co-direction was really the two people from each company, and then the direct management of the programming was done by the German part. The sound and image management was done by the French part. And there was every week a remote meeting between the different teams, technical meetings, and you know, planning to all the possibility to get funding for this project. And so the project is also about 500,000 euro that was done for this project. And as you see, the split, again, I mean, in that case, the German government was about 65%. The German company brought about 20%, and in France, the tax credit in France brought 16% to the project. So it can take really some different ways. And as you see, it's not really about 50-50 project. It's more about a majority co-producer and then a minority co-producer, because of course, the majority co-producer, the one who developed the project, wants to own a big part of the IP and also is developing the project for himself most of the time. So what happened is we started, as I say, in 2017, this idea of co-production. We started also because in our acceleration program, as I said, we have a lot of companies, and we saw that they never really worked together. People didn't really collaborate. So we thought, okay, there is something to be done. And in last year, in 21, we had 5 countries who were part of it. And last year, I mean this year, 22, we got the support from Creative Europe, so at the European level, to make it much bigger. And this year, we managed to get 15 countries part of the co-production market. And this year, we also did a call that included Ukraine as well. We had 1 studio from Ukraine who was part of the matchmaking. So this year, we had about 100 studios who registered to the platform. We had 70 studios who did the matchmaking, so trying to find someone. That happened in June. There were about 100 meetings. And then we have today 10 co-productions that are confirmed, involving 10 countries from Europe. And on the 10th of November, this co-production will pitch now to publishers and financiers. Okay. So these are the countries partners that we had this year. So obviously you see most of the countries, also part like Tunisia, because it's part of Creative Europe as well. And for next year, we are already discussing for the next round. And we have already on board now Austria, Luxembourg, and Finland and Sweden as well are looking into that. We're also talking to Poland at the moment to be part of that. I mean, the idea is obviously the more countries we can get, the more potential there is to access interesting projects and to find some collaborators. So in terms of if you are interested to join next year, I mean, we are starting by the end of November to plan for 2023. But basically, it's going to follow a little bit this schedule. Between March and April, we will identify studios because we will be doing advertising and marketing in these different countries to get people interested, so registered. And then we will do some mentoring for making sure that people understand what it is co-production, and especially about the time, the stage of development of your project. I mean, the difficulty is to find projects that are not too early, but not too late. I mean, something has to be there to be attractive, but not too far, otherwise it will not be interesting for the co-producer. So it's something that we can help you in this group mentoring to understand that. And then in June, we will start the matchmaking session until Gamescom, basically. And at the end of Gamescom, we are asking people who can confirm which one want to do co-production. And then we bring everybody to Strasbourg in France, with also all the public funds that are attached to the co-production to discuss the project, to work with experts as well, and to get much more ready. And as I say, after we are pitching the projects as a common pitch to publishers and financiers. So last thing, what do you need to think about when you're looking at a co-production model? I mean, the first important part is really to understand what you are good at. What are your strengths? What can you do yourself? And what do you think you could need help on? Okay, that sounds very easy to say. It's very difficult to help developers to understand that. And also, what is the stage of production you are? So really understanding where you are in terms of prototype, if you are very far from prototype or it's just it's done. Financing, what can you get in your country? What do you expect from the co-producer to bring as financing? So that's an important thing. And then the intellectual property, how much are you ready to share the intellectual property with a co-producer? Depending on the countries and depending on the co-producer, people may be very interested to share, maybe not so interested to share. And in terms of revenues, obviously, if they are working on the project, they expect some kind of share of revenues. So that's also something you need to think about. So to finish, last slide, basically benefits, why co-production? I mean, obviously, it's another way. You can still go directly to a publisher, to a financier with your project. I mean, of course, it's another way. But co-production can help you to access maybe better the market and you know, counteract the market domination, to enhance competitiveness, to bring maybe more diversity, this idea of collaboration, to strengthen your skills, to bring more artistic part, to bring more financial support, accessing, for example, tax credit if you are not in a country with tax credit. And then you had all sorts of soft benefits like access to network and developing the visibility. And all that could be really interesting for indies in Europe, where the idea is to say, okay, let's not do too many games, but let's try to do bigger one and more interesting and more appealing to publishers. So that's basically the idea, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Somebody have questions? Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I actually have a lot of questions. So my name is Maroš Broj, I'm from the Slovak Game Developers Association. Just a small note, in the beginning you had Herní cluster there, which represents, according to your slides, Slovakia and also Czech Republic. They're from Czech Republic. We're directly from Slovakia, so if you want, we can maybe be part of it too. We would be very happy to help. So my original background is from animation and film. I studied film, so I'm pretty well aware of how most of the time regular co-productions work, especially in the field of film. It's not that common yet in the field of games, which I think is a shame. I don't know why, really. I guess it has maybe some historical thing or something like that. But yeah, to the questions. Well, I'm quite interested in whether there is some sort of official definition of a co-production when it comes to the digital games, especially because I'm guessing that Creative Europe Media, which created this new sub-program for co-productions in games, probably has some very specific conditions on how the co-production should be working. So my question is basically two in one. Is there some sort of a more official definition on the European level? And what are mainly the main conditions for getting into a co-production when you're applying for the Creative Europe program?
Okay, thank you very much. So just to clarify on Slovakia, so basically maybe you know them from Kunst, from and okay, they participated with it. To be also very transparent, we ask each country to pay a small fee to be part of the program, and they didn't have anything on national level, but they decided to do it, and they asked us if we could add Slovakia part of it, and we said, yeah, of course, no problem. In fact, we have one Slovakia company as part of it. So that's why, and of course, we'll be happy to develop that in the future. Regarding your question, that's a very good, first part of your question, why it's not used in video game and more in animation. To be honest, I think it's a question of mindset. I think for film people, because of the location things, or animation, because they don't really have a choice to finance, they have to work with other countries to access broadcasters. They have to do it. So they started to collaborate together. In terms of gaming, that's a little bit the problem. There's no real need, in a way, by the nature of the project to collaborate with other people. But in fact, as we see in these different examples, in fact, this is really to enrich the work and develop this collaboration. Of course, it takes time. Of course, it creates a lot of communication problem, and it's not so, in terms of administrative as well, it can be complicated. But the idea is really to enrich the project and to create couples that could really develop project long term. And that's what we see in animation or film. People don't really change so much partner. They have found 2 or 3 companies they are working with, and they are doing that the next 10 years. And that's the goal, is to find partners you can trust and start developing project, and then you can do many together, and then it's very simple. The first one is painful, but after it's more simple. And your last question, no, there's no clear definition. We are, as you know, Creative Europe is helping games, but at the moment the program is more for narrative games, etc. What we do here is open to any games. And we have the support from Creative Europe is really more on the marketplace than for that. So there is no clear definition. To be honest, we are discussing very much that at the moment. And through this project this year, we have put together the 15 countries, the 15 public funds. And most of them, so I think there were 12, they all came to Strasbourg, and we are now created a network of all these different public funds, especially to speak to the Commission about that. And they will.
Slovakia is there too?
Sorry?
Slovak Fund, the Arts Council is there?
No, there was nobody from Slovakia, to be honest.
Happy to help with that.
Yeah, that's right. So definitely we are interested in that, but we had many countries, and there is a workshop with the European Commission on 15th of November in the morning about that as well. I mean, part of it is for that, and really to understand that. But I have to say that there is a big difference between the film co-production and the game co-production, is that today all the funds in Europe we're talking about, let's say most of the funds, they are public funds, they are all open to anybody in Europe. So you don't need any bilateral treaty or anything to use. In fact, they are even open to directly being asked from people from abroad. I mean, for example, in Germany or in France, you in Slovakia can do an application in France directly without a co-producer. In practice,
there's usually some sort of a cultural test or something like that, right?
No, not for that. Not for the access to the public funding. Most of the time, there's no test. The test is really for the tax credit. Okay, you could apply directly, but to be honest, nobody's doing it at the moment for different reasons. And of course, it's much better to go through a co-producer in Paris or in Berlin to do it. But in reality, you could do it. And today, all these public funds are really open for co-production. The thing is today, nobody is really asking for it, not many people. And that's why, in fact, the public funders say, well, okay, if nobody applies, we don't need to change anything. But now with our group, these people, we are starting to work on that. And people, these different funds are starting to see how we can facilitate, how can we synchronize different parts, etc., to make it simpler for co-production. So definitely, it's the beginning of the journey, but we are moving into that direction for sure.
And one more question. Well, this is, I guess, a bit further into the future, but since the co-productions are still being formed for the first time and people are learning about how this model can work, but do you think there is a perspective or there's a potential there for maybe creating cross-media co-production projects or 360 projects, or I don't know how it's called, for example, Cartoon Forum, which is a pretty big co-production event or networking event for the animation industry. They have this category called Cartoon 360 for yes. creating 360 media projects. So do you think there is a potential in the future to maybe educate, I don't know, the animation world or the film world and the game world together in some sort of a, I don't know, event co-production forum to actually create cross-media yes. big projects yes. that would be creating from the beginning animated films while also working on games in the same time?
Yes, I think there is a possibility. I think it's still a bit difficult because, especially about the funding, because the funding are very siloed. It's funding for game or it's funding for animation, etc. I mean, we had a lot of talk with Cartoon to try to do things different together. Then at the end, we thought it will be easier and also more appealing for gamers to come to really a gaming event and not a mix, because the buyers are not the same. It's not publishers, it's buyers from say. So it's a little bit difficult, but it's coming. For your information, we are doing a project at the moment for the German government between Europe and Africa, which is exactly on this subject, on how to bring animation and gaming between Africa and Europe, for the simple reason that in Africa there is not this difference. All the studios there are doing comics, animation, and gaming together. Exactly. So, I mean, that's quite interesting. We're trying to develop a kind of partnership platform between Europe and Africa. And yesterday I was working on that to find a new terminology to get game and animation together, because if you keep the two names, it's a bit complicated with the player. But I think it's going to change, but I think it's going to take some time. Also, because gaming, as you know, is not recognized as a cultural product at the European level. in some country, but not at European level. And today, we're trying, because we have a lot of questions about if we are part of the co-production market, we have better chance to access the European money from Creative Europe. No, there's no specific thing today on that. But of course, that's something we're working on, and they've been invited, Creative Europe, to join the discussion, and they are looking at what we are doing. So I hope it may change, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But we are really pushing for that, and yes, we need more. So happy to talk to you about that in any case. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you.